Welcome to the BLTnT Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Loria, serving up real stories of business, life, technology, and transformations. You'll hear from interesting people about big changes from career shifts to life-altering decisions and the innovations that help make it all happen. It's about sharing those light bulb moments, pivot points, challenges overcome, and the journeys that inspire us to think differently. If you're on the lookout for insights to propel you forward, stories that resonate, or just a bit of inspiration on your next BLTnT move, you're in the right place. Let's dig in. Well, here we are with another episode of the BLTnT Podcast. I'm Matt Loria, and I'm sitting here with my guest, Dan Weingartz.
Great to be here, Matt. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being a part of it. I have two separate bios that I pulled in off the internet about you, but I decided I'm going to scrap that. I'm just going to ask you, you know, when people ask you, what do you do? Would you explain who you are and what you do?
Sure. I guess starting with husband and father. So I've got a wonderful family. My wife and I have been married for 28 years, and we have four great adult children now. So all kind of in the young adulthood, two girls that are 23 and 21, and sons that are 20 and 18. So that is, raising them has been kind of the best thing in my life. The CEO of W&P Management, which is, I guess I would describe it as a family of family businesses. And so we are all in the power equipment and power sports industries. And so we've got the Weingartz retail stores, where we're celebrating our 80th year, 6 retail stores in Michigan. And then a distribution company, Power Equipment Distributors, with locations in Richmond, Michigan, and McDonough, Georgia, that we serve about a third of the country as equipment distributors to dealers like Weingartz, and then BW Retail Solutions, which is a e-commerce retailer of power equipment and power sports parts. Through various channels, primarily Amazon. So those businesses, and then the W&P Management, I guess would say, is where I spend a lot of my time now, is kind of the support system for all three of those. So we do finance, HR, IT, and purchasing support for those businesses. And so along with my partners, which so there's 4 third generation partners in the business, as well as 5 fourth generation, and some additional 4th generation that are kind of coming up through the business. And so that's another aspect of my life. And then I would say overriding all of that is that I would say I am a very proud Catholic, and somebody who hopes to live his faith in a serious way, and have that inform everything that I do. And so I always say that I'm a Christian first. That should be my number one identity, and then that's where it hopefully informs the husband and father and executive and the other things that I have to do. So along the way, have gotten involved in some really awesome things that maybe we'll get a chance to talk about a little bit today, where some charitable organizations that are doing incredible work that I've had a chance to get kind of intimately involved in. And so it's been an unbelievable life. I am incredibly blessed, and hope to continue to be able to do kind of show the gratitude for those blessings as I go forward.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna jump right along to what you said there. You actually said to me the other day, we're not called to be successful, only faithful. So I thought that was, pretty, exceptionally apropos for the man I know you to be. So can you build on that a little bit for us?
Yeah. So that's a quote from Mother Teresa, that Saint Mother Teresa now, is that that I've always really loved is that, and I would say, uh, as I've gotten older, has made a lot more sense to me because I would say I spent a lot of my young adult life and as I was kind of building a career and a family, I'm really focused highly on outcomes and really thinking about, we've got to be, we've got to get this done. We've got to, kind of hitting all of these milestones. And I've taken a lot different approach, I would say, in the last decade or so, which is that, you know, we can do a lot of things if we focus on what we're doing, why we're doing them, how we're doing those things, and allowing outcomes to be what they are. And I have found that to be kind of liberating from a standpoint of not uh, being so worried about things, not having so much anxiety over decisions, and just frankly, with all of my roles, there's a number of high stakes decisions that you have to make, but understanding that, the process kind of is more important. How, what is it that's driving those decisions? I've become very particular, I guess, about and adamant about our values in our businesses and how we are living those. And then I would say even personally of like, what are the decisions that I'm making? How do I think about these things? Because then it does take some of the pressure off of, as I say, I'm just simply not smart enough to make all the right decisions. And so you've got to kind of trust a process to say, I can live with whatever the outcome is if this is the way that I'm thinking about it, if I'm doing it for the right reason.
I had a mentor, and I've said this plenty of times before on other episodes that we've done. I had a mentor who would say, "Resign your position as general manager of the universe."
Yeah.
And at the point in time when you do that and you start realizing that you cannot control everything, even though you've got a powerful job and you've got a lot of people that are responsible for you, or you're responsible for, and they're responsible to you. Um, we can't control it all.
That's right.
Um, the I listened to another interview that you did regarding people of faith in the business and how they're running their organizations. And in that, you said something really interesting that I wanted to make sure that we shared here, which was you were talking about your career, and I want to understand your career of when you joined the organization and to where you are now. But you said I was unqualified at every point in time because the business was growing so fast. I was always being put into something that I was unqualified for. So I will say that your statement about trusting, you kind of always had to have that trust, somewhere there, because you knew that you didn't know everything.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the part of where, yeah, that is my career. Is that so? I've really had one job my whole life. This is from age 13 till now is all been just a progression, and not always a straight line progression. I would say is like I've done lots of different things because that's what the business required. And never once was I qualified to do what I was doing. That I never had the requisite, but it was a family business, and we were fortunate to have a lot of growth. We certainly went through the pain that growth that you're not prepared for can bring. Um, and so yeah, I've always about the time that I start to feel like maybe I might actually be decent at this, there was always something else. And so it's been, in hindsight, that has fed my personality and my kind of the way that I like to operate. I love challenges, and I kind of like the idea of being underwater. I will say less so uh, as the older I get. I used to thrive on that, as if I was underwater, then that was, you can kind of outwork it and try to use, whatever you have. And those challenges really excited me. I would say now I very much like having things more in front of me, and I think that's a little bit of kind of understanding how we change in
Hmm.
life, and and I do understand the drives of the things that drove me before are different now, but absolutely that is my now 39-year career in the business has been one of um, always being, kind of a little bit over my head and trying to figure it out as I went along.
Yeah, you had mentioned, one of the questions that I asked you when we were chatting the other day was, is there a book or anything that's kind of helping to shape your thoughts? And I wonder, you had mentioned a book called Halftime,
Yep.
and I'm kind of curious. Did you start to have some of these feelings about, boy, I'm starting to think differently, or was it just really great timing that the book kind of came into your life? And make sure that you explain to folks, who don't know what it is. Let's
Yeah.
let's bring them up to speed.
Yeah. And I would say um, it's reinforcing a lot of my biases. I got interested in reading the book. So Halftime by Bob Buford is really about kind of having the second half of your life have significance, especially for folks that maybe had a successful first half of their life. And the idea, it's a sports analogy that says, you don't you got to take some time in the middle there to figure out kind of what adjustments you need to make for the second half. And so um yeah, I would say the reason why I think it's a good book, and but I wouldn't say it's life changing to me because it is reinforcing a lot of the things that have been on my mind. I would say I think especially as my children entered adulthood, and kind of you get that as a parent, kind of a sigh of relief that like they're going to be okay.
Hmm.
And um, there, even if it wasn't always, I would say, in business, there, at least on the surface, or at least in the story I was telling myself was always that, you're working for them, and you want to do these things to make sure that as a husband and father that you've, prepared a good life, and that it's kind of apparent to me that like they're going to be fine. Like they've got their own skills and abilities and how they're going to impact the world. And then so it's very much of what's next, and how do I take these this desire to kind of attack challenges, and say, how do I make it significant? Because different than I think a lot of folks, I do not look forward to retirement. I certainly there's pieces of maybe having more control over your time, or more um you know time to that's discretionary, I guess, that like that is that's super attractive. Um but I also understand, I think I've got more to offer. I think there's more
Hmm.
things that I would like to um, have an impact on in my life, and I ultimately would like to, um, yeah, I guess just have some significance that says, maybe even outside, maybe within the business, because I think that's certainly one area. I'm not closed off to the idea that that's a big part of what this second half is. But I think I'm kind of still figuring it out of where, what is what's the next, how do you add significance? And for me, I would say it's not about like legacy. I think, I hope that part of my legacy wise, number one, I guess I don't think it means a lot to me, but that's in what you instill in your family, and kind of, those values, both in my kind of immediate family, and then with the family business and the employees and everything else that comes along with that. Um, but it's just I think we're called for it. I mean, so much of this always comes back to my faith, is like, um, there's a lot of work is good, and it's it's been given to us as a way to be able to make an impact on the world. And I'm grateful for, I often say I was given a bucket of gifts that are valued at this point in time. A couple hundred years ago, a lot of my skills and abilities would have been, would not have been highly valued. A strong back would have been a lot better, and I'm not necessarily good at that. And so
You
it's
came about at a good time during the riding lawnmower era.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And so yeah, I'm very interested and try not to get in my head too much about what it means, but very interested in trying to be purposeful about what the second half of life is going to look like.
Something coming up for me is you had mentioned, having that success in the first half of life. What would you say to maybe a peer of yours that maybe hasn't reached the certain successes and is now staring down the barrel of second half?
Yeah.
And how would you advise them to be looking at things?
Yeah. So first and foremost is that be careful of how you define what that success looks like. Actually, I was just having a conversation a month ago or so with a good friend of mine, and it was kind of has a small business and was talking about some challenges and some regrets about kind of that maybe there was opportunities to make it more successful, and kind of reminded him of what he had built and so much of it outside of the business with a great marriage and a great family and a group of friends that really love and respect him, and I'm like, first of all, be careful how because I think that's a danger for folks that, like, our business has been in all accounts very successful, but that does not necessarily mean that we've been successful doing it. Now I'm very happy with where it's at and how we've gotten there and all of that, but so I guess that's the first. And then the second is, we see it in sports all the time. Of you talk about teams and players that are second half teams, and that they come on stronger when after they've made some adjustments and they've done. So I think that's I think the interesting thing in this book is that it does not have to be a continuation of what the first half of life is.
Mm-hmm.
It can be something that's totally different and a rewrite of kind of what the game plan is of, oh, hey, you know what, maybe I didn't go because very similarly, folks that are very successful, that maybe some of the relationships didn't go as well as they had hoped.
We all know plenty of folks like that, where from the outside looking in, people would say, wow, they've hit a measure of success, and
Yes.
we know the personal wake that goes behind them.
Absolutely. And that doesn't have to be defining either. Like, I think using that second half to really concentrate on, what does it mean to have, really solid, loving relationships, and so I think there's so many of these things that just say, like, I think a lot of us get into, and I certainly do. So this is no preaching. This is me talking, to myself as much as anyone is. This kind of self-image of, I am who I am, and I won't be, like, I don't have any ability to change. And I think we have so much more ability to change and to control our future than we would ever imagine. And I see those opportunities. I love it when I lean into those opportunities to stretch myself and get out of my own head or whatever. But I also know that my natural tendency is to say, yeah, that's just not who I am. And so I think, challenging, and I would say, another theme in the book that is one that I firmly believe in, and one that we try to stress in our business, and and I try to with my children, is to work from strengths also. Like I think spend way too much time um, worrying about the things that we're not good at,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of just understanding, like, of course, like you're not good at everything. Like you were saying about being general manager of the universe is like, of course we're not. Like we're given a bucket of skills and abilities, and life's so much better when you work from the strengths of those
Absolutely.
than when you worried about. Yeah, it's good to try to improve on deficiencies, but it's hard and it's usually not fun. And so breaking through some of those, that's wonderful. But spend most of your time worrying about like, or trying to figure out how can I take the strengths that I've been given and really use those to do the things that I'm looking to do.
I agree. And I feel like my own um, management, style is point out the constructive criticism, right? You could work on this, you could work on that. And over the last couple of months, I've been trying to focus on, okay, let's go back to what's the person's wiring? What are their
Hmm.
strengths? Let's focus on that. Let's find the wins and then exacerbate on those. Let's take the B's and turn them into A's. Let's stop trying to take our C and D skill sets and turn them into B's and A's. It's not worth it. The
It's
juice
not.
isn't worth the squeeze.
That's 100% right, and it's frustrating, and you just and you can accelerate things so much more quickly when you take because that's when people are excited and they're going to give you the
Yeah.
most effort. I mean, I know I do. Like when I can do the things that I feel like I'm kind of naturally good at, that's energizing. When I've
Sure.
got to do the things, if I got to sit down and like read contracts, I just know that's going to be a low energy day for me. I actually try not to, like if I know I've got a lot of detail work that
Mhm.
I'm not good with them. Yeah, like, and I know, but the job is like sometimes you just have to do it. But I don't want to have a lot of important meetings that day. I don't want to have a lot of other interaction because I know that I'm going to be kind of miserable.
Yeah, well,
And
you listen to your energy, right?
yeah,
And you
exactly.
know that I'm not I might kick the dog, if I go home after reading too many contracts.
Yes.
You know what I like though about the conversations that we've had, and people hear me talk about, Patrick Lencioni. I got a picture of him behind my desk, as the ideal team player is humble, hungry, and smart. And I always think humble when I think of you. And when you were talking about gifts, you said to me earlier that, and not in this episode, but when we were talking the other day, that intelligence and privilege, that you look at those as unearned gifts. It's like you said something to the effect of it's like being born tall.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that you were born with, and I think that maybe that's why people gravitate towards you as a leader and they want to do good for you, is because you acknowledge some of those things that maybe other people don't
Mhm.
acknowledge, which then says, hey, I'm going to celebrate what's a strength that I actually built, and I'm also going to leverage the platforms that I was gifted into, and I'm going to build upon those. I'm not going to look at them as though I did this all. This episode of the BLTnT Podcast is sponsored by Auxium, business IT and cybersecurity designed to outsmart chaos. And powered by Juniper Networks. Automate your network with Juniper Networks and the Mist AI platform, the world's first AI-driven wired and wireless network.
It's yeah, I will say that's like that comes from an article I read probably over a year ago. And it's just taken like so much headspace. It was a relatively short, kind of like, internet blog kind of, article that has taken so much of my mind space um because I just think it helps me with compassion of like of the, it's we talk about people being smart like it's an achievement, and the reality of is life is like I was always smart. Like I was a smart kid. school was easy. It wasn't that I put in any extra work in order to be smart, and in today's kind of knowledge society, like I say, having the bucket of gifts that I was given is, um, it is, I realize that it makes life a lot easier. Like it is it is a gift that has made my life enormously easier. And, um, and it is really akin to, like, we try to put, to me, like that has a shine. Somebody being smart is like, but you don't say that somebody's tall like it was an achievement of theirs.
Like, good
And
job eating all that tall enhancing food.
exactly. Or that like, and that you somehow worked harder to be tall.
Mm-hmm.
But we do that with intelligence. And that was kind of the meaning of this article was, like, maybe we should have some more compassion around folks that is more of a challenge, and that and we kind of almost treat like ignorance as a it is a derogatory term. Almost everybody would say it's a derogatory term, when the reality is it really just means that you don't know. And I've just, like, that's been on my heart a lot, of like, how do we look at people? How do we look at the way that people live their lives absent of intelligence? Because it is such the ultimate trump card, as far as getting, um, to making life easy in the time that we live in today.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we, treat folks with compassion, that those things don't necessarily come too easily, and not to put so much shine, like myself, not put so much shine or respect on those who just are smart. And because I think there's a way that we use our gifts that, I don't think those things are, like, I look at privilege as as not a derogatory term either. I think it is, like, I am so grateful. I came up in a number one in a loving family. Like, I have, I'm one of 7 children with, parents that loved each other and that had an exceptionally stable household, and a family, get along very well with all my brothers and sisters. Like, I've got, like, it's a life lottery, huge hit.
Yep.
On top of, kind of the financials and the business and everything else. I understand that, like, and I don't have any guilt about any of that. Like, I am so grateful for all of it. Um, but it's also what I think we should be striving for everyone. And so I look at, when you talk about privilege, I want everybody to have that privilege. And if they're understanding that not everybody does, it certainly is something that we should, you know, be, again, compassionate about. But I don't think that means that, anybody needs to feel guilty about kind of what their background is either.
Sure.
And there is no question when they talk about the, people that born on third base, man, I got it. I couldn't have been more so, when you talk about, kind of family opportunities, faith, all of the things that I was given. And I will always be grateful. But I will say, over time, it's taken me a while to get to where I don't feel guilty. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and just saying, this is, this is the lot in life that I've got. Now, what do I do with it? And so yeah, that's probably been, I will say, like, kind of over the last year, that's just been a lot of where my headspace has been, of, like, how do we just look at others as they are, instead of, kind of what gifts they were given, so.
What about the term meritocracy and the things that people earn on their merit? How does that play into, what you're saying here?
Yeah. So, I think it's absolutely the right way to organize the world, because I think it's best for everybody if the folks who can do the most good kind of get the most benefit. I mean, there is a agreed portion to that says, what's our best opportunity to make the pie as big as possible? It's to put, the folks who do the most with it. But I don't think it's the right way to run your life, and to say, because everybody would say you don't love your kids more or less based on what they achieve.
Right.
And
so if one kid can cuts the lawn more times a week than the next one, we still love them equally.
Yeah, exactly. And it is, so it's really obvious when we come to our family to say, well, of course, that would be kind of gross, right? To say that I love my kids because of what they've done, not of who they are. But I think we should be more kind to each other, in other, there's a big difference between, I think, the way that an economy works and the way that our kind of soul should work. And I think, our soul should work in one that says, I have I can really think of everyone as an equal. And an economy, that would be a really bad way to run things. I mean, that would be, it would be disastrous to say, well, kind of, anybody can be CEO, so let's put them in that, or anybody could be the accountant. Well, no, you need somebody that's got that skill and ability and, the things that, and that's why we have, engineers and accountants and salespeople and all of these different roles. We should be putting people into their best use. And the market is going to determine sometimes that, like, the financial outcomes of those things are going to be different because of supply and demand and how much value that brings. That's just an entirely, and I think people want to conflate the two. I certainly hate politics nowadays. And I think that's one of the errors that we make, is that we try to say the way that we should put together the decisions we should make based on economics, which in my eyes should be all about how do we make the pie as big as possible so that we lift as many people up as we can, with the way that we should run our hearts, and which is that we should absolutely look at everybody as equals, and how do we treat one another in our interactions. We conflate those things like that. They're if you got to be one way, that you should be the same on the other, and I just think that's just not sensible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you certainly live it though too with what you've done. You're heavily involved with a group called International Samaritan, and there's some very poignant words and feelings that come up when you talk about that organization and what it does and the people that it serves. And I think that would be living proof that you treat all, or that you at least strive to treat all. We're not perfect, but that you strive to treat all people with dignity, and dignity is a big word for both of us. And so I want you to talk about that organization. The word garbage dump community just hits so hard, and I know it hits really hard for you because you've actually gone to these. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. I have so many thoughts going through my head though of the last part of the conversation, but I really want to make sure that we shine focus on this.
Yeah. So another great blessing in my life, getting involved with International Samaritan. And so let me tell you a little bit first about who we are and what we do in that organization. So we're in a 31st year of serving families that live on garbage dumps. So when we talk about garbage dump communities, that is exactly what you think, is that it is not, as Americans, we may think of garbage dumps as landfills. In developing countries, they are not landfills. They are unregulated dumps. Literally, the garbage trucks come in and they dump garbage. And for folks that are kind of living on the periphery, it provides a source of income. You can make roughly $2 to $3 US dollars a day, usually recycling things off of the garbage dump. And so whether it's plastics or tires or metal, you can pull things off of the dump as the garbage trucks come in. And so there's a whole economy. And so there's, generally speaking, in these garbage dumps in developing countries, there's anywhere from several hundred to 10,000, tens of thousands sometimes, people that live on the garbage dump, usually kind of at the base of the dump, and that's their livelihood. And so generally, a lot of folks that would have a hard time otherwise in the economy. And so, number one is a lot of single mothers. I would say healthy men are largely absent in these communities. But it could also be men that are lepers or that have significant disabilities, and so it is as dire as what you might imagine. And so the organization was started by a Jesuit priest on a trip that he had taken with a group of high school students to Guatemala back in 1994. And Father Vitis, the legend has it that the bus had a detour, and they ended up in one of these garbage dump communities, which are, generally speaking, very close to city center. So there's usually a real dichotomy between they're not usually that far from downtown, because you don't want to have to cart the garbage too far away. So usually a few kilometers away, you've got this garbage dump. Him and a group of high schoolers saw this, came back to Toledo and said, what are we going to do? Like, we can't just unknow
Can't
what
unsee
we see.
that,
Yeah.
right?
And what we now know. And so they started largely, I would say, there was a group of families, somewhat led by the Pulte family, that started building some housing in this mission, this area of Guatemala. Over the years, I would say the mission has grown. So at that time, it was called Central American Charities. Now we have missions in Central America, in Africa, and in Jamaica, in the Caribbean. And so, and I would say our focus has changed a little bit. I would say probably it's gotten a little bit more ambitious, in that we are focusing on what we term as holistic scholarships. So education for young people in these areas is very difficult. A lot of the public schools are not well thought of, and they're not well taken care of. And so the opportunities, and then on top of that a lot of the young people at a very young age have to work in the dump to help sustain the family. And so
it's almost
$2 or $3 per person is
almost impossible for them to seek out education because they're busy working.
They're busy working in the dump every day. The dump conditions are as bad as you may imagine, and more dangerous than I ever thought they would be. I mean, garbage trucks don't stop, and so there's often very bad accidents with people getting run over in the dump. We had at our mission in Uganda a terrible landslide in the dump, because they are not secure, and so that killed dozens just a year ago. And so those conditions are awful. So what we're trying to do is, when we say a holistic scholarship, is we want to find the educational resources to help make them successful. but then all of the other things that they need. So if that means that they need some food support, if they need some access to medical care, if they need clean water, we try to bring clean water into the communities that we're serving, and then um, and then some place to go to get away from the chaos that is living in a garbage dump community. And so we try to create what we would call maybe like a community center here. We call them family life centers, is like a place for a kid to study, to maybe have, some clubs, like, we have, kind of self-defense classes for women in Ethiopia. And we have uh, co-ops in a number of the communities where the women, the mothers in the community can come together, and whether it's making jewelry or having, a farming business or something like that. So we try to create like what we call Family Life Center as a place to kind of come together, and really giving all of the wraparound, and then certainly the kind of the mental health resources and spiritual support.
Mm.
So these it's all led by heroic teams in country. So we've got the organization International Samaritan is has got a small team in Ann Arbor, a wonderful team that kind of leads the efforts and helps to raise the money.
Didn't you just recently hire a president?
We did, actually. So we're about trying to think. I think Mike's been on board now for about 6 years. That he took over from the founder. He's an unbelievable. Mike Tenbush is an unbelievable transformational leader. Somebody who could absolutely run a corporation as well, but has a heart. Spent most of his career trying to make things better in the city of Detroit, in various nonprofits, and now has committed himself to this mission in garbage dump communities. And he has dramatically expanded our reach and the depth that we go into. And but the work is done on site, and then we've got these teams that really become part of the community. Oftentimes they are part of the community, and they're leading the efforts and really kind of just kind of wrapping their arms around these scholars that we have. And so we're up to almost 1,000, just over 900 scholars in 7 communities that we serve, and it's unbelievable work. I talk often about the power of hope, because if there's anything that this has taught me is, kind of what the power of hope is. A little bit of hope goes so far, and we've got success story after success story of children who, once given that kind of, like, I can see the light of how I can make my life better, that just absolutely run for that opportunity, and are doing amazing things, and then almost without fail also coming back and helping their community. And so
they rise up, they come back, and
Yeah.
they give the next hand up.
That's right. And they're creating this kind of what we would call kind of an alumni network,
Love it.
where they're coming back and mentoring the children that are coming through the program now. And so we are just seeing kind of some of our, kind of first round or first, few years of graduates from the program, and the impact that they have as they go on, and they're nurses or taxi cab drivers or barbers or mechanics or whatever that they're doing, but that they can kind of show the young people, like, this is the opportunity you're given. Your life does not have to be one of substance that is only comes from working on a garbage dump. And so, and kind of proving that point of that is not who you are. And it's
Right.
interesting, because I think you were shocked when I said garbage dump communities, as like that sounds like a derogatory term, that it sounds like it's something.
I just thought it was such a picture that you painted, and then when you told me that the like the smell. I mean, I could when you were telling me about this, I could feel it because I could see the look on your face because one, you've actually seen it,
Yeah.
and then you've smelled it. So it's been a full experiential,
Yep.
negative experiential
Yeah.
uh, impact on you.
I've been hearing a lot lately about the knock. When an employee knocks on your office door and says, "Got a minute?" and you immediately know it's some sort of IT incident. But Oxium IT can help. Whether you're having a problem, need consulting, an upgrade, or a managed IT approach, they focus on preventing cyber attacks and proactive solutions that deliver results. My friend Matt Loria and everyone at Oxium are ready to help before or after you get the knock. Visit Oxium.com and let Oxium IT help you outsmart chaos.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to visit three of our missions, one of them twice, and it's and all of that is like it's so real. I mean, it is it's gross. I mean, it is. I mean, there is the smell is vile to the point of for somebody who has grown up in a pretty cushy life. It's like it's hard to not vomit. I mean, on just as you walk through, and that's what the homes are.
Mhm.
And when we talk about the homes, it's generally dirt floor, corrugated metal outsides, and the runoff of these garbage dumps goes right through the streets. Like it is um it's a stream of kind of what we would consider kind of open sewage, and it's as bad as you might imagine. I will say that is not the overwhelming kind of feeling, though, when I've had the opportunity to go into people's homes there, and is that it is one of gratitude. I mean, I will say, as difficult as things are, I would say that in a lot of these communities, family is more stable than it is in my own community at home.
Wow.
And there's a lot of reliance on each other. And like I say, the hope becomes very much it's when when your desires are something better than what we have, um, and and you see just a couple of quick stories of like a you know a, a family that it was in their home, and father is a leper. Um, the mother was kind of, I would say, kind of the matriarch of the community. Like they have, very much. This is in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and father was, talking very, glowingly about the organization, the opportunity that it gave for their daughter, and she was getting her nursing degree, and so he was talking, and like the mother had started like a small farm selling eggs. She was raising chickens and selling eggs, and so they were able to kind of buy some brick and add on uh to their one bedroom home, and
Mhm.
a little bit extra space, and he was taking a lot of pride in that. And then he got very emotional as we're sitting there talking, and he said, all my life people have looked down on me because I'm a leper.
Mm.
And he said people didn't want to be around me. People, uh, didn't have the time of day, and I believed them that I was not worthy of their time. And he goes, that's he said, but my daughter is going to be a college graduate, and no one will ever look down on me again.
Mm.
And he said, and it was just like this incredible um feeling of like, yeah, like this is what we all like. It was this kind of joining of like, yeah, I've lived an entirely different life, but I want the same things.
Yeah,
Like
your joy is derived from the same exact thing that his is.
yeah, exactly. And it's this in a different way, and in a um and and the pride, frankly, was just it's bigger in his heart because because I do see that my children had every opportunity, and there is an expectation that you should be able to,
Sure.
do well in life, because of all of the opportunity that you've been given. To hear that, it was like, oh my God, there's the Father's love, and it was just like, and just a number of these like kind of very similar interactions of folks that came from really, really difficult. Another young woman in that same community that talked about losing her parents when she was like 10 or 12, and she had younger sisters that she was caring for, and so that's why she moved from the countryside where there was literally no work to kind of becoming a domestic in and around the garbage dump of, kind of, and she described before she got introduced to International Samaritan, she just very matter-of-factly said, when I was 12, I just realized my life was over and I was living
Whoa.
for my sister. And at 12, this is the kind of reality that somebody is living and saying, like, I just want something better for them so that I'm just going to live the rest of my life for. And now she is, it's very interesting. She says she wants to become a cook. And she says, well, I've cooked for people and cleaned for people my whole life. She says, I realized if I can choose to do it, it's not drudgery. Like I actually enjoy it if it's my choice. It's funny, the director there in the Family Life Center, they say, we try to tell her all the time, it's like, this isn't your job. You're a guest here. But she's always, cooking for people or cleaning up around the place. And she says, no, this is my joy, because
That's great.
these are the people I love that have given me, this opportunity. And so, like, it doesn't always have to be, people becoming doctors and nurses. Like we say, there is tremendous success in somebody, just going into a loving marriage relationship, or like there's all these success factors, or like I say, becoming a taxi driver or a beautician. Like those are all enormous successes because it's people taking control of their own lives and agency. And like I say, dignity is a word I use a lot. I believe that we are all equal in human dignity, and that is what kind of gets realized when people have agency over their lives. And so it has been so much fun. It's weird to say that working with, garbage dump communities is fun, but I look forward to going on the trips. I joke, so I say I've been back to our mission in Ethiopia. I've been Ethiopia, Kenya, and Guatemala. I've been back to Ethiopia twice, and it's odd to say, but I have friends there. Like, and we still, the beauty of the internet is, like, we still correspond with each other and, keep up on each other's lives. Because I have friends in my life, I never would think that I would have said, "Oh, I have friends in Ethiopia," but I absolutely have people who I care deeply about that are that live there, and so it's been awesome.
That's
I've really
fantastic.
enjoyed it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Good work too. I mean, when most people in your position are going on safaris over there, you're going and working in the garbage dump. So, I mean, I think you should be proud of that.
Yeah. I went on safari there while I was in Kenya, though.
Good,
Also.
good.
So, so I'm not always. Yeah.
Well, that kind of brings me to one of the things that was coming up for me is when you're talking about the community center is the ability for respite, right? And that's where so much growth takes place, right? I mean, if you're, look at the hierarchy of needs, right? Nobody can really be self-actualizing if they're worried about where their next meal is coming from. And so maybe they're, when the person gets first introduced to that, it's got to be odd for them to actually have a down moment. Like you said, this young girl doesn't even know how to really rest to stop serving because that's just what she does. So I think so much growth is happening there, because you're offering the holistic view, right? As opposed to just saying, hey, we're going to give you some money for education. okay, great. So now I can work all day and then I can go to school all night. There's no time, right? There's no time for the growth to occur.
Yeah, that's so our mission says we walk hand in hand. Like that's part of it, because you can spend a lot of money on aid, and that's great. Like I don't
Sure.
I don't want to downplay that. Material aid is important. Like it's really important in these communities. But you also walking with somebody is so important, and it is such a having that team that really is becoming part of their life, part of their support system. Not that their family isn't supportive. Oftentimes they've got loving mothers and siblings that are very supportive, but it is somebody being able to show them maybe a different way, or showing them some other opportunities in a way that, as you said, when you are focused solely on how do we live today, that it's just a really difficult life. And I think also we should certainly be grateful for the fact that we should understand this was most of human existence, right? Like this is relatively new to the last, couple hundred years of having time for recreation and
Right.
leisure like we do. That just wasn't, it was really hard. Life has been really hard for most of human existence, and still is for a lot of people.
Sure. This episode of the